Hi, I'm Meredith Blackwell, and this is Don Pfister, and we're going to interview Marin Brewer. We are at the Mycological Society of America meeting, and it's the 10th of July 2022, and we're on the campus of the University of Florida at their hotel, one of the Hilton hotels. And we're going to say start. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? And we just heard in the pre-talk, Ohio.
Yeah.
And tell about your family. Were any of them interested in mycology?
Okay.
Not likely, but start out
Very
there.
very free form
Yeah.
to begin.
Okay. So I was born in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up in Menor. My mother and my grandmother were both attorneys, and I had an uncle who was a scientist, so he introduced me to science. And he worked at the nuclear power plant, and he was in school getting his master's degree at one point for nuclear science or nuclear physics or something like that. Yeah, his bachelor's was in physics, but he had a Geiger counter, and so for my 5th grade science project, I went around the whole house, like finding everything that was kind of radioactive. So I was always interested in science. And then when I was in 6th grade, my science project was with plants and doing some things with plants. So then I became more interested in plants. But I didn't know anything really about fungi until after undergrad is when I was really introduced to fungi. I had gone to the University of Cincinnati for undergrad, and I thought I was going to be an engineer, but I switched over to biology and was really interested in plants, and then worked on the effects of root exudates on microbial communities. And the point of that project was to use plants for bioremediation and see how the different microbial communities were affected by the root exudates, and then how they broke down the different chemicals that might be contaminants in the soil. And I really enjoyed that. And so I knew I wanted to take a little time off from school, work in a lab, and I was looking for federal jobs, and I saw a position at the U.S. Department of Agriculture with the ARS in Maine, and my grandmother's actually from Maine, so I thought it would be nice to go live in Maine. I like nature. And it was a position looking at the effects of rotation crops on microbial communities in the soil, and then how those would control plant diseases, but I didn't know anything about plant diseases at the time. So I applied for the job, and because of my experience as an undergrad researcher, I got the job. And I thought when I got there, I was mostly going to be interested in looking at the bacterial communities, because that's what I worked with as an undergrad. And so I started, and I found the bacterial communities from the soil really interesting, but that was the first time I saw the fungi that were coming out of the soil. And it was awesome, like all the different colors, all the different structures. And then I took a class, Biology of Fungi, with Shauna Annis at the University of Maine, and I started a master's degree. But when I took the Biology of Fungi class and saw all the structures in more detail, that was it. That was fungi. Yeah, that's how I came to fungi.
Right.
Yeah.
And then after you left Maine with a master's?
Yeah, so I had a master's, and I had taken a class in I think it was just called molecular biology. And so I wanted to learn a lot more about molecular work, and there was a position that opened up at Ohio State University working in molecular genetics with tomatoes. And so I went and took that position as a research associate. And after maybe about a year or so, I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot about molecular biology, but I really missed working with fungi. And there was one point when there appeared to be a disease outbreak in the greenhouse, and the tomatoes were all sick and diseased, and that was like the highlight of my time there. And that's when I knew I had to go back to grad school. Yeah, but that's when I was so excited, and that's when it really hit me. I'm like, hey, I care much more about the fungi than the tomatoes. Yeah. I'm interested in both, but and I knew I wanted to go back and get a PhD, so I went to Cornell University and got my PhD there, working on powdery mildew of grape.
And who did you work with?
With Michael Milgroom.
Yeah. I graduated from, I did my PhD at Cornell.
Is that right? Were you with Dick Korf? Yeah. I drove him to a foray once. his wife didn't want him to drive at that point because it was, it was maybe like 12 years ago or so. And Kathy Hodge was staying for a couple days, so she's like, can you pick him up and give him a ride? And I was happy to, and we had a really nice time.
Yeah.
Drove down to, the Southern Tier area for the, I can't remember the name of that 4-H, the Peck 4-H, but it was really, we had a good time. Yeah.
So you finished your degree at Cornell.
Yeah, and then I was looking for jobs, and I saw an advertisement for a mycologist at the University of Georgia, and it was my dream job. It was teaching, research. They were looking for someone looking at either like systematics or genetic diversity of fungal populations that are associated with plants. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And I almost didn't apply because they had written in the advertisement that postdoctoral experience was, they didn't say required, but like it made it seem like I didn't have a chance at all. So I almost didn't apply. And I actually applied the night before. I think maybe just that night that it was actually, the application was due. And I got it in like right at the deadline. And I got a phone call to interview, and I interviewed and got the job, and I've been there now for 11 years. I'm just became a full professor, and it's been super. Thank you. Yeah, it's been super exciting. There are plenty of plant diseases caused by fungi in Georgia with all the humidity, so there's always a lot to work on. A lot of emerging diseases. So it keeps me really busy. And now I work on plant-associated human diseases, so Aspergillus fumigatus, and looking at how it's developing resistance in the environment from exposure to different fungicides that are being used. And then that makes it so that when it's inhaled by people, then it's already resistant. So it's a big human health issue.
I think it's very interesting thinking about your background and the fact that you took time off and you worked and you did these projects and so forth. And I think it's informative maybe for young people who might listen to this that, you didn't have the postdoc, but you had all this other experience.
Right, and I think that helped. Had I just maybe gotten a bachelor's and gone to Cornell for, my PhD, I don't think they would have considered me. So I think that's one reason why they considered me at UGA, because I did have these other experiences.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you collaborate with any of the other people in the department, or you?
Oh yeah, a lot. So at UGA we actually have this group called Fungal Group, and we have actually a really large number of fungal biologists at UGA right now. So people in plant pathology, people who work on Neurospora, medical mycologists. So we have a really big group. So I work a lot with Michelle Momini, especially on Aspergillus fumigatus. And then on different plant diseases, I work with almost everyone in the department, especially a lot of the people who are more on the extension side, because a new disease might show up. And for example, there was a problem on cotton, and it's called target spot, and they knew it was caused by Cornespora caseicula, but this same fungus causes target spot on soybean and target spot on tomato, and they were all kind of emerging at the same time, and they didn't know, is this the same population? Did it jump from soybean onto cotton? And so that's when they approached me like, hey, this would be, kind of your area of expertise. We need your help. Can you help us figure this out? And so we worked on that for a while. There was also
What was the outcome?
Oh, the outcome was that it's 3 different populations. So it just seems to be emerging on each separately, but you can, at least in the US, the soybean and the cotton populations are distinct. So the growers that were concerned about rotating soybean and cotton don't have to be concerned. Yeah. And then the tomato population is different too. But in Brazil, we had a limited number of isolates, but it looks like there the soybean and cotton populations are similar. So there they might have an issue if they're rotating those. Yeah.
Has anybody done infection studies?
Yeah, we did host range, and it does in the greenhouse. They can cause, so the isolates from cotton cause the most severe symptoms on cotton, and from soybean, they're specialized to soybean, and tomato are specialized to tomato. And we could see some infection, like some spots on the other hosts, but we never isolated fungi from those other populations from the wild. So it seems like maybe in a greenhouse environment they can, but out in nature we never found them. And we collected isolates from like the same location from all 3 hosts. So yeah. Yeah, so Tim Bredeman works on pecan, and he had noticed that a lot of pecan trees, like landscape trees or trees in orchards that weren't well managed, were developing this disease. And they had isolated the fungus, determined it was a Neophysococcum, but they weren't sure which species it was. So I worked with them to collect a lot of isolates from Georgia, and they were also finding that this disease was occurring in Texas. And we figured out that it's actually a completely new species. So we named it Neophysococcum cariogenum after a pecan. So, yeah.
So how do the people that you work with who own these pecan trees, how do they like the names? Do they resent name changes?
Oh, the plant pathologists resent name changes.
Yeah.
So just they alone, yeah. I mean, so one of the pathogens I work on was known as Didymella brianniae, and it causes gummy stem blight. And so I worked with some people to try and understand that, because it's really diverse. And I found not only is it Didymella brianniae, but it's 3 different species, and actually it was named wrong. Didymella brianniae wouldn't work for this because actually they're more closely aligned with Staganosporopsis. So now the one is Staganosporopsis citrulli, and the other one is Staganosporopsis cucurbitacearum, and then one is Staganosporopsis keresi, and they don't.
And what are they calling them? Are they accepting this?
Yeah, they probably just call it gummy stem blight, but the other researchers have accepted the name. But I will see a lot like more people maybe doing diagnostics still sticking with Didymella brianniae.
It's a tough sell.
Yeah. And they do get frustrated, especially if they're changing all the time, like in multiple different, like a lot of the peanut pathogens, the leaf spot pathogens, their names have changed multiple times in like the past 20 years. So I think the farmers just like go with the common names.
Yeah, I always thought it was a mistake to change the name too early. If you're doing molecular work and, oh yeah, it's different, and then you don't really know because your sampling hadn't been wide enough. Yeah.
And a lot of times with the growers, I mean, they don't really, I mean, it's good for them to be able to recognize it and be able to communicate what it is, but they just want to know how to kill it. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've had to tell people I don't know how to kill fungi.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So tell us about your teaching.
Oh, yeah. So teaching, I teach mycology every fall. And when I first started, there were about 20 or so students that we would get. And it's a mostly undergrads, and then usually 5 to 10 graduate students will take it. But it's mostly an undergrad class. But over the past 10 years, the enrollment in that class has taken off. I think like students are just really interested in fungi now. And a lot of them are in like ecology. And then I've had some like science illustrator students, and then we have the graduate students in plant pathology, and then in other like microbiology, some of the other programs, food science, we have some of those students. But it's really fun. We have a collection, of course, a fungal collection. So the students go out, foray for fungi, and we identify what we're finding, and they have to turn in, a set number of specimens, and so many of them have to be molds, and they have to identify molds. And we have the students work together on a poster, go into an area that they're interested in that we didn't really cover in a lot of depth in the class. So it's really fun. So that's mycology. And then every spring I teach Fungi, Friends, and Foes, which is a class, like a kind of a large lecture format class on the impact of fungi on human civilization. So we cover everything from medical fungi to historical catastrophic plant diseases like chestnut blight, all sorts of fun stuff. But that class has become so popular that we keep having to get bigger rooms to accommodate. And now we're in like the max in-person room, which is like, I think 375 students.
Oh my gosh.
It fills up like
That's great.
and I get these emails from all these students like, please, I just want to be in your class. I need it. I'm like, it's not required for anything, but I'm glad I'm excited that so many people want to take it.
Is it an elective in any area in the university?
It's a science elective,
Okay.
but anyone can take it if they've taken intro biology. So they only have to take like one semester of intro biology. So a lot of students are interested. And during I think it was 2021, spring of 2021, it was online the whole semester. And because it was online, we could have enrollment up to 500 students. And so we had almost 500 students.
Oh,
Wow.
well, that's administratively a tough job
Yeah.
for you. I mean, as the course head.
It's actually, it was really fun because especially when it was online, I felt like it was even more engaging than in person, which seems like the reverse of what you would think. But we had like the chat box open. Students seemed to participate more because like everyone was right there instead of in this huge lecture hall where some people were so far back. So it actually was really conducive to that sort of format. And administratively, Mycology actually is much more work because we have essays and much longer exams and everything's written and the collection and the labs.
Specimens.
Exactly. So actually this one kind of almost runs itself, and I have 3 TAs for it, and they kind of field most of the email and questions and stuff. So since I've been teaching it so long, that one really almost runs itself. But yeah.
Well, the students recognize the teacher.
Yeah, I think they really like the material, but I make it fun and engaging and try and just get them to see fungi everywhere. And that's what a lot of the students will say, that in like the reviews of the class, that I took this class because one of my friends mentioned it, and now I see fungi everywhere I look, and I never knew that I would even care or like fungi, but I really find them to be amazing. So that's what I'm trying to do with that class.
Yeah.
Are any of them interested in these networks that you see in the newspaper? People are interested in networks, saving underground networks.
Oh yeah,
And they've got into this.
yeah. Students are really into that.
Sheldrake. And
Yeah, that book, a lot of them have read the book. I can't remember the name right now, but yeah, they're and they are fascinated by the different movies about fungi that have come out recently, about even like psychedelic mushrooms and the effects they could have on treating people with like post-traumatic stress disorder. Just all of these things that fungi are doing now, the students are very interested in.
Yeah. Well,
someone
it's a
told-
great service to
Yeah.
be offering a class like that, I think,
Yeah.
for the raising the profile.
And also for these people who are going to be voting, and so many of them know so little biology.
Yeah.
Well, they are science majors, but this makes them know a lot more.
Yeah.
So, did you want to teach them where?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I saw it in an email. She has won the teaching award this year. And it's really an honor. It's named for a Harvard professor,
Yeah, William H. Weston. Yeah.
And I saw it in an email, but I haven't had time. Someone told me the award winners are all in the email that
Yeah.
was sent out to us today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I haven't
so-
read that one.
So that's great.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, I was really honored.
Well, and it's usually that I was trying to hint at it because that's usually something the students start and do and nominate you.
Yeah. Well, and I so Michelle Momini, actually, she and a bunch of students wrote letters on my behalf, and yeah, it was really nice that all the students did that. But the students, I love teaching because I wouldn't want to just do research without teaching, because I really like the interactions with all of the students. And even with research, I have, graduate students and get to interact with them. But it's so nice to meet all sorts of different students, and even ones that, they might be going to medical school or dental school or more interested in other organisms than fungi. But just to have them in my class and meet all these different people is always really fun. And some of them are extremely enthusiastic about fungi, and it's nice to work with.
And the pre-meds at least are exposed to fungi, which they
Yeah.
may not get
Yeah,
much
I always
later.
figured that it's kind of an investment in their life, that they've had this experience, and you don't know where it's going to come back.
Right.
And often as teachers, we don't know. We have an impact, or maybe not, but we have some influence. And they discover sometime down the road, oh yeah, she was talking about those fungi, and I know something about those.
And they may not get all excited about the mold on their houses, and some people go crazy over it. I used to get phone calls, it's going to kill us all. But the ones on the outside of the house, so they'll understand that that's a fungus that just happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll get emails from students like, 5 years in the future. Look what I found, Dr. Brewer. I wanted you to see it. I thought it was so cool. Yeah. And then, other ones will tell me that they're annoying all their friends because they won't stop talking about fungi and they find everything so interesting. And they'll be like, look at this is this. And look, here's a chanterelle. And their roommates are like, oh my gosh, here they go again. But yeah, those are my favorite stories. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a freshman biology student. Actually, he had retired from the Army and he'd come back to school. And I was teasing the class and said, well, I'm going to miss the next few days because I've got to go truffle hunting. And we're going to discover truffle mines. And I said, it's going to help the Louisiana economy because there was a real movement on then to improve the Louisiana economy. And so 5 years later, I get a phone call from him wanting to know how the truffle mines are going, and he's got money to invest.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was on the occasion of Jim Trappy coming to Baton Rouge to look for truffles. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're really funny. They're fun to be with.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
I guess, the only other thing, so I also have in the summer, I'm the faculty coordinator for USDA research and extension experiences for undergrads. So we have, like 10 to 15 undergrads that come from universities and colleges all over the country. And we are definitely interested in recruiting students from underrepresented backgrounds and getting them working in labs and introducing them to careers in both plant and microbe sciences, and showing them what kind of career opportunities there are and what research is like, and talking to them about applying to graduate school. So that's something I've been doing now for the past 4 years. And we just had that grant renewed again. So that's another kind of teaching.
That's great, bringing people in.
Yeah. And just, students who, they're like, I'm interested in grad school, but I have no idea what it's like or how to apply. It gives them kind of that experience. And I teach them science communication. We have some science communication workshops, and they present a poster at the end of the summer program. It's 9 weeks. And we have a big poster symposium with all the different REU and REU programs across campus. And some of them, their parents will come into town to see their poster. It's really nice. Yeah. So that's a good program.
Education for the parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, and
Yeah.
congratulations on your
Thank
teaching and well done. And for all the work you do for the society. We didn't really get a chance to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
But are you relaxing now?
For now, I am, definitely. But yeah, I remember Kathy Hodge actually told me this when I had won a graduate student award and a travel award, and she said, now you have to give back to the society. And I was like, happily. So I've always enjoyed volunteering. It's the least I could do.
You had one of the hardest jobs.
Yeah. But it was really rewarding. Yeah, it was 3 years. So the past year, it was weird. I was just telling Betsy Arnold that it's so strange because when I was the local organizer for the MSA meeting in Athens, and so that was for a few years planning that, and then EVP. This is the first time I'm not really doing anything. EVP, I just show up.
EVP is Executive Vice President.
Oh, yeah, Executive Vice President. And it's weird to show up to a meeting and be like, I have no idea what's going on. I just look at the program and go where they tell me to go, and it's a new experience for me, but it's nice.
It's good.
It
Good
is
to
good.
have the break and to feel that
Yeah.
you can enjoy the
Yeah.
meeting in a whole different way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Great. Well,
Well,
thank you.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.